Somebody asked me a question about non-standard meters and floating tempos and how to use that audio inside of DP and basically lock it to a grid. So here is a kind of basic setup of what we're doing. This is the example of music I'm doing. This person who asked me a question is Indian. Dhafer Youssef, I believe, is Iranian, but close enough for this. So this is the piece, wonderful piece, and I suggest you listen to everything by him. The meter in this case is short, short, long, long, short, short, long. And this is how we would interpret that with Western notation. This division of things, they're all eighth notes. And the tempo, this is from a live performance, so it's floating, and he's around 160 beats a minute. So this is our starting point. I've kind of set it up here. So the audio starts exactly at the beginning, and there's a bass tempo here, and here's roughly what it sounds like, just so you get an idea of what we're working with. And you'll hear the click. No clicky yet. I'll turn it off. It's a nice gentle groove. If we add all of these up, it's 17. So our meter actually is 17/8. So let's put that in. We're going to insert a meter change here, and it's going to think we want 4/4, which of course we don't. So 17/8. And by default, it's going to be clicking quarter notes. Sort of in sync, but it's drifting out of sync now. And by here it's totally out of sync. So the first thing we have to do is fix the beat pattern. It's right now by default a quarter note click, and we don't want that, we want a pattern. So the pattern in DP is a little bit funny. We know it's going to be 2, 2, 3, 3, 2, 2, 3. And we would want to write this because that's how a time signature would look if we wrote a time signature on paper that specified the subdivisions. But in this case, this is not how DP interprets it. This here, these that DP tells subdivisions take the place of a single eighth note. They fit inside of an eighth note. That's what DP thinks this means. So in other words, these three are an eighth note. A 16th triplet. So if we put it like this, as you would put it on paper, listen to the tempo. It's a freaking machine gun. So actually, these three need to take the place of a dotted quarter. So the way DP does that, 4 for quarter and D for dotted. For some reason the period doesn't work, but the D for dot does. So now listen. So that's much better, but it's still drifting out of sync because it's a live performance. So what we're going to do next is we're going to go to Project, Conductor Track, Adjust Beats. And what we're going to do as adjusting the beats, we're going to drag the beats in the edit window. That's good. I want to adjust whole measures, not just single beats, because the band is steady and they're not floating that much. So adjusting, putting one tempo mark per measure is plenty. We could move a single beat at a time, which will, if you're working with picture, this is better. This will adjust the tempos, it'll adjust the clicks without adjusting the synchronization to video or synchronization to anything else. In this case, we want to move all following beats by the same amount. So the changes are going to flow down the audio, and basically nothing to the right will get any tempo changes, only the thing we're working on and something to the left of it. So we're going to leave this window open, and I'm going to zoom in a little bit. What we got to do is, so all we got and grab beat 1 and put it on the bump where it belongs. So there, that's a downbeat. And you can see most of them pretty obviously, and it will get even more obvious when the band comes in. This one, I feel like I had to move a little bit more, so I'm going to check it briefly. Yes, that was correct. And this looks like the band coming in. Now it's going to get really easy. Let me just play a bit over here for you. This is without my tempo adjustments, and I'm pretty sure it's going to be wildly out of sync. Right, so that's a mess. As I'm zooming in here on each beat, just aligning this where it belongs. Oops, sorry. So I make sure each beat lands on that spot in the audio. And little by little, it'll all sync up. And it's really simple. There's something similar in Logic called beat mapping, which works really well. And I'm sure Cubase has something similar also. I don't know Cubase. But I don't think this is a unique feature, but it's a really good way to wrangle things. So check this out. This particular beat is already lined up perfectly. So I'm going to leave it, and I'm going to adjust this one here because this one is off. But watch this one. What it does, because I'm adjusting in this measure, or in this window rather, I'm adjusting a single measure only. So what it's going to do is I'm going to adjust this beat, and it's going to put a tempo marking here. So in other words, everything here will remain locked, and only this single measure will change. Watch. There's a tempo marking there and a tempo marking there, both created just now. So if one is okay, you can skip it and move to the next one. It saves a little bit of time. And so if you have some live music, let's say you recorded a tabla player or something like this, they're in an uneven meter and an uneven tempo, then it's actually pretty simple to sync everything up. And this, of course, can work in simpler cases as well. If you just have like a rock band in 4/4, but they did it live in a rehearsal room or something, then you do something like this and drag all the beats in place, tempo flows as their tempos, and you will get a dynamic tempo map that is following the live performance. Now there is a thing called tap tempo, which you can basically just thump along on something, anything that triggers MIDI, and it will create this dynamic tempo map for you while you're tapping. And that's fine, but it's not as precise. This is going to be really, really locked in, and that will be really, really helpful. So listen now, and listen how tightly synchronized the click is. Oops, sorry about that. Let me close this window because I'm still adjusting beats, and I will play again. So you get the idea. Wherever it is, it's very tightly synced. These tempo variations are not very big. It's all hovering around 160 beats a minute. And if I zoom in, you can see here is like 154.5, and there is about 160. So it's really only about a 5 beat per minute range. So the band is steady. These are tiny variations you would never notice live, but they make the click fall out of sync. So the end result now is that the music is locked to the grid. So now I'm going to record something in MIDI, and then I'm going to quantize it to the grid and move it around. And you will hear that the MIDI, since the MIDI is locked to the grid, the MIDI will now be also locked to this audio recording, which has been synced to the grid. So check this out. Totally boring, but I'm just going to zoom in here. This audio, I'm going to quantize to eighth notes. I'm not going to change the releases because I want them still to be short. Great. And let's listen. Cool. It sounds fine. But the really nice thing is I can drop it anywhere where I've already created the tempo, and it's always going to sync up. I think you get the idea. No matter where I am in this tune now, work. It's going to, because the grid is now following this variable tempo. Right? So you get the idea. That's how, if you're working with live music pre-recorded and now you want to conform a tempo map to it, this is a really great way to do it. And it can be a little slow to drag each beat one at a time, but you end up with a really, really precise tempo map. So sometimes tap tempo is good, but if you want something really precise, this is the way to do it. Adjust beats. And you can also go one beat at a time if it's really floating, or if you have, for example, big accelerando or retards, and the tempos, really needs to be micromanaged. You can go single beat at a time instead of whole measures, and then you can really fine-tune it to exactly what the live performance was. And then from then on, you can quantize your MIDI to the grid, and it retains the feel of your original source audio, which was recorded live and free without a click. So I hope that's helpful, and let me know what you think.